Managing life really shouldn't require 3 or 4 different apps. A good tool can genuinely make a huge difference. After years of trying different systems, even going back to paper planners at one point, the only tool that actually stayed in my life was TickTick. What makes TickTick special is that it's incredibly powerful without ever feeling overwhelming, and there's barely any learning curve. And it syncs seamlessly between my phone and computer. So now, I don't just use it to manage work, I use it to manage basically every part of my life. So let me show you the workflow I've been using, and how TickTick slowly became the system that organizes almost my entire life. Everything in TickTick basically starts with task lists. The way you organize your lists is really just the way you organize your life. There's no single correct system here. Sometimes it's based on context: home, office, computer, phone. Sometimes it's based on time, like this week, next week, this month, someday. But personally, I organize my lists by life areas, because for me, organizing things this way feels the most intuitive. It's also a little inspired by the idea of a life wheel, because it helps me keep different areas of life in balance. And if something starts feeling too broad, I'll usually just turn it into a folder and split it into smaller lists. I like organizing things this way because it makes everything much easier to find later. Life stuff stays with life stuff. Finance stays with finance. And if I suddenly get really into something, like photography or fitness, I can just create a separate list for it, so all the related tasks stay in one place too. Once the lists are set up, the next important thing is capture. At this point, I pretty much put everything into the system immediately. If I don't, it's gone. There are 3 features I really want to recommend: Global Quick Add, the voice input shortcut, and TickTick MCP. On desktop, one shortcut instantly opens the Add Task window. Then I can use tilde to quickly send tasks into the right list. It saves a lot of extra steps. It all feels really seamless. On my phone, I added a voice input shortcut to Control Center for quick capture. And with AI mode turned on, I can say multiple tasks at once. And TickTick usually recognizes everything automatically. No typing things out one by one. And lately, I've been using AI a lot for work and everyday stuff. After connecting TickTick MCP to my AI tools, I can just say, add this to TickTick. No copy-pasting, no switching apps. The conversation ends, and the task is already in my system. It genuinely makes capturing things feel effortless. Between writing tasks down and actually doing them, there's one step that's really important for me now: putting tasks into my calendar. The calendar is probably one of my favorite parts of TickTick. On desktop, I can view my tasks and calendar side by side, so while I'm looking through what needs to get done, I can also see my existing schedule at the same time. And I can simply drag tasks directly into the calendar to time block my day. Usually, I only plan things this precisely when I'm feeling low energy or unmotivated. Because once I've already blocked out time for something, I'm much more likely to actually do it. But most of the time, I actually prefer month view. I don't really need every hour planned out. I just want to see what my day looks like. So usually, I organize everything directly inside the month view. I'll clean up yesterday's tasks first. Complete things. Add notes if needed. Then I'll check my inbox and see if there's anything I should work on today. And if something repeats often, I can just hold Command and duplicate it. What I really like about Month View is that I can see my entire month at a glance. I can see what I've already finished, what's coming up next, and everything just feels much more under control. One small tip though: if there are a lot of tasks in a day, some of them might not fully show up in Month View. So I usually switch to Multi-Week View, which reduces the number of visible weeks and gives each day more space. On mobile, you can just pinch outward with 2 fingers to enter this view. And even with fewer weeks on screen, scrolling through the month still feels really smooth. Sometimes life just gets overwhelming. There are too many tasks, too many overdue items, and suddenly everything starts feeling out of control. At times like this, trying a filter that only shows tasks from the last 3 days can really help. Because if something has been overdue for 3 days and still hasn't been done, it's probably not actually that important. So instead of stressing over a huge pile of overdue tasks or avoiding opening the app entirely, it really helps to just use a filter and narrow things down. Besides filters, I also use the Eisenhower matrix. TickTick includes one by default, but you don't actually have to use it for important versus urgent. Each quadrant can be fully customized, including both the name and filtering rules. Sometimes I even use it more like a dashboard. One quadrant shows overdue tasks, one shows today's tasks, one shows upcoming tasks for the next few days, and one shows unscheduled inbox items. So at a glance, I can immediately see what's overdue, what needs attention today, and what's coming up next. Instead of seeing one giant, overwhelming list, everything is divided into smaller sections. That alone reduces a surprising amount of mental pressure. And of course, you can organize your own quadrants however you want. There's really no correct setup here. It completely depends on how your brain works. Besides tasks, I also use TickTick for habits. You can freely set the frequency for each habit and also choose whether it shows up in smart lists. For example, setting a habit like running once a week. After enabling habits in smart lists, it keeps showing up in Today every day until it gets completed. I also really like the habit heat map. Being able to visually see the streak somehow makes me want to keep going. When it's time to actually work on something, I can also start a timer to track the session. The timer can even be added directly to the home screen, so starting it only takes a single tap. And one thing I really like is that timers can be linked to tasks. So over time, I can see how long certain things take and where most of my time has been going. But for me, starting the timer isn't really just about tracking time anymore. Clicking that button has kind of become a mental switch. Once the timer starts, I naturally start focusing and getting into work mode. At this point, I even use TickTick for birthdays, anniversaries, and other important dates. Like how many days are left before a launch, or how long until someone's birthday. Having those dates visible just makes important things easier to remember. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to share about TickTick today. There's probably no perfect tool. And no perfect system either. The only thing that matters is whether it actually works for you. At this point, TickTick is just the one that stayed with me long term. It didn't turn me into some hyper-productive person. It just finally stopped life from feeling chaotic all the time. That's exactly what I needed.